Hello, hello, hello. It's me back again, Gmash Speaks, on the part B of the sixth pill in the toolbox kit, the synthesis toolbox kit. I have done the part A previously, and now I'm concluding with the part B. Thank you so much for clicking on that link. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for listening to this. It's very much appreciated. I would like to comment this part B of the sunlight toolbox kit peel with some facts that I only discovered when I was recovering from my chronic illness. Rather interesting and thought-provoking facts and statements. So here we go. The higher your cholesterol, the healthier you are. So what I'm saying essentially is increase your cholesterol, eat 2 hard-boiled or soft or meat-boiled eggs every morning. There is no such thing as having too high cholesterol. What they've told us, what Big Pharma has told us, is that we have LDL and HDL as cholesterols. That's bullcrap. They are not cholesterols. They transport proteins. Okay? That's all they do. And that's all it is. What they've done is carefully and strategically calling these protein carriers, calling them good ones and calling them the bad ones. So they call the HLD the good ones, the good cholesterols, and the LDL'S the bad cholesterols. And what they've done also, they've dropped the level required, or your cholesterol level required to live healthy, so low, and they keep dropping it, so that those who were living healthy the previous year are now in a bad cholesterol segment. And that keeps being done regularly, so that everyone and their dogs live off cholesterol lowering drugs, otherwise called statins. It's all a scam. It's Big Pharma scamming our ignorance. And I think it's a good place to state this here. My favorite book reminds me and says, He will wipe every tear from our eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. So we as a people will not perish because now we have knowledge. So from what I stated about my favorite book, essentially it's evident that there is an existing old order of things, and this old order of things has been set up to keep the ignorant ones amongst us sick, unwell, in pain, and crying. So here's the thing. The media and the print platforms, the print world, has been paid so well and bought up so well by Big Pharma and Big Foodie and the likes of them. They've been bought up to propagate crap, to socialize us in crap. And this is one reason why I decided to sit my butt down and set up Gmash Speaks to be one of the voices to break us out of this old order of things. Now, I'm going to drop another fact, another statement. Since we're talking vitamin, we're talking sunlight, okay, which is what creates vitamin D essentially, is the sunshine vitamin. Now, the less vitamin D, the less sunlight we habitually get, will be the less quality sleep and the less healthy we are. So welcome back to my platform. Now, due to the length and the amount of information that I would like to share on this extremely important pill in the toolbox kit, I broke the pill on sunlight into 2 podcasts. Okay, so I'd like us to refer to the first podcast 6A, which is on the internet, is on the YouTube right now. Both podcasts will be what forms the 9th or the 6th tool in my toolbox kit, and there are 9 tools in that toolbox kit. Okay, and the essence is to create new conversations. So today we are discussing again on sunlight. And the essence of these discussions is to create success in our lives, which in itself will bring us to a point where we experience optimal 5-star health and wealth. That is essentially what this whole thing is about, to bring us to a level in our existence where we are healthy. I left off the last podcast 6A, on sunlight, with this particular screen that you're actually looking at, that our sleep is getting attacked. It's getting attacked daily, getting attacked weekly. And I would like to comment and continue the part B with how to improve sleep. And that's going to be in context with sunlight. Again, I state, for emphasis, I will suggest that you listen to both podcasts in order to get a better view on this rather interesting pill in our toolbox kit. This is the 6th tool in the Synthesis Toolbox Kit. During my launch on the 15th of February in Burj Khalifa, I did mention that I would like for each of us to have 3 things on our minds whenever we listen to any of my GMAT Speaks series. And these 3 things that I would like for us to always consider are this, and it applies now to sunlight. What do we know at this point in time about sunlight? What do we need to know about sunlight? And what can we then do with the information that we know about sunlight? 3 strategic points I would like to have you to have behind your mind as we go through this. So let's get into our Synthesis Toolbox Kit. Let's step into the 6th, or to the part B of the 6th pill, which is the third S in the Synthesis Toolbox Kit. This is sunlight part 2. In addressing the sunlight pill, I've taken us on a journey of how our sleep has been grossly hijacked and attacked. And this is done through deliberate and strategic means so as to keep us deprived of sleep. So what am I saying here? The more that we as a consuming nation or consuming generation keep servicing the big industries, meaning that we are part of a culture where we sleep a lot. So the more we begin to sleep less, the more less airtime usage that we have in terms of mobile technology, the less TV we watch, the less of Netflix, the less of Hulu or cable TV, digital TV, Tubi views that we have, the less likes that we have on social media, the less tweets, the less Instagram postings that we have, the less TikToks that we post out, the less Facebook chats that we have, the less social media interaction that we have. And the list keeps growing and growing and growing. So the less time we get to spend on these platforms that I've just mentioned, then of essence is the less income these big players make. So the projects that they have is to get us to spend more time on these platforms, and nothing wrong with that, especially if it's stuff you do to achieve certain goals that you've set out to achieve. However, this whole series is how to improve the quality of our lives, how to improve and optimize our health. So in stating the obvious, which I just stated previously, I'm now driving myself down on how do we improve our sleep. And I have stated that the big industry players in our commercialized world, and these industries that I'm referring to include big pharma, telecommunications, the food industry, they have long realized that once sleep can be hijacked, once sleep can be compromised, once sleep can be destroyed, once quality and regular sleep can be manipulated, once sleep can be made to seem irrelevant, inconsequential, or unimportant. I mean, just think about all the superlatives you can actually attach to sleep. Then having us staying awake more, keeping us more busy, making us be more occupied, will only serve their financial purpose. So now we're discussing sunlight, and here I am talking about sleep. Am I cuckoos? What's the relevance? What's the connection? Just hanging with me, just stay with me. I put sleep, and I've spent time on sleep as a prelude to sunlight. You'll probably still be asking of me how sleep and sunlight go together. What's the connection? So here's the thing, and I would please like that if there is nothing else you take away from my talk, please take this with you. When you don't sleep, or even when you reduce your sleep by about an hour and a half, when you sleep less than, it could be an hour, it could be a half an hour, it could be an hour and a half. When you sleep less than your genotype or your physical expression requires, or your physiological characteristics and composition requires, then immediately, and here's what you need to take from my talk. This is the point I'm trying to get across to right now. Immediately that happens, you've left out an hour or 30 minutes or an hour and a half of your sleep. There is an increased risk of your blood pressure going up, your stress levels going up, or of you becoming obese, or of you having insulin resistance, which of course leads to illnesses like diabetes and also gaining weight. So there are huge cascades of events that happen if you don't sleep well. And by that, I mean if you do not get quality sleep, not quantity sleep. I'm referring to a habitual loss of sleep. Even though I did mention if you lose out on just 1 hour or an hour and a half or 30 minutes of sleep, there are unheralded consequences. And I've listed the consequences. Before I got chronically ill, I never used to see or address sleep as an important quantum. However, I quickly found out in my journey to recovery just how important to me recovering the use of my liver from the petrochemical nonsense that I was subjected to. And even further, I realized how quality sleep is key to optimal health, how it relates to diabetes, obesity, heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, that I realized that I needed to address and take it more serious. I realized that I need to draw up and come up with a daily rhythm, otherwise called circadian rhythm, which is a repeatable and constant biological clock, so that my brain, my body, my mind gets into a state of homeostasis, and self-healing. The body heals itself. The body was created to be self-healing. It's a total organ, not meant to be treated disjointedly or separately. It's one organ. We came from one cell, essentially. So I quickly realized that having deep sleep and quality sleep daily is like a restart button. I mean, I'm from an IT and telecommunications background, but this is basic knowledge. If you look at the restart button and look at it as being a defragmenter in the brain. So quality sleep is like when your computer is not working well and the hard disk needs to be fragmented. Quality sleep is like you getting to restart your computer and you get to defragment the hard disk or you reformat it. So having quality sleep does some of that. It resets our minds and our bodies. Now, how does this tie up to sunlight? The reason why I'm putting this out, the reason why I'm taking so much time on sleep is this, and it's basically a fundamental basis or foundation of me projecting so much emphasis on sleep. A good quality night sleep the night before or that particular night starts with a good exposure to sunlight during the day, or it starts with a good dose of vitamin D. It starts with a good dose of good level cholesterol in our bodies. Yes, it does. So what did I just say? Did I just say that good sleep is predicated by sunlight? Yes, I did. Then did I just say that quality sleep is predicated by a good level of cholesterol, the so-called, and in this instance I'm referring to the so-called bad LLD or LDL cholesterol? Yes, I did. Now this is very much, and I want us to link up every fact I've put across now. Let's try and link this all up together. Now, unlike what we've been socialized to believe with regards to high cholesterol, and I'm taking a slight digress here. So while we stay on cholesterol, I'm sure that we realize that vitamin D is a cholesterol product. And I don't want to go into or deeper into this cholesterol discourse in this stage of introducing the 6th pill in our toolbox kit. However, can I just mention this? And this is my next, as I will put it, my next bold statement. Our vitamin D production, which it's produced in the body, is directly linked with the levels of LDL cholesterol in our system. That's correct. The so-called bad cholesterol. Vitamin D is directly linked to it. Now, Big Pharma has taken time, decades, used the print media, used social media, used everything, okay, to demonize LDL cholesterol. That's what they've done. Now, LDL cholesterol is needed in our skin and required to be combined with UV exposure to sunlight or UVB exposure to sunlight to create vitamin D in our system. And I would like us to please look out for my podcast where I will discuss on how big industries want us using, this is another sore sticking point, where they want us using SPF creams to protect ourselves from being burned by the skin. It is coming. This podcast is coming. It's in the mail. It's on its way to you. Please just look out. It's all a scam, and it's a money-making system, and we've been sucked into it. Hook, line, and sinker. And I need to stay on this. I'm going to stay on this for quite a while, on this LDL crap. Now, The so-called LDL cholesterol that has been so demonized, quite frankly, has been sold to us as a negative hormone or a negative nutrient or whatever you want to call it. However, do we actually know that cholesterol in itself is food for our neurons in our brain? And it's very important for vitamin D production. I just want to stay on that and emphasize that cholesterol that has been targeted to be reduced in the body is actually present in all our body cells. I don't want to digress into that right now, but I need to mention this. So if you have been diagnosed with an illness, an ailment, it could be cardiovascular, it could be heart disease, it could be anything, okay, or something you've inherited from birth. Now, when you are being told to reduce your cholesterol level, the LDL, then they give you what they call statins and other drugs to artificially lower our much needed LDL cholesterol. Now, this will in itself actually lead to a vitamin D deficiency. And when we are vitamin D deficient, it is just a matter of time. What happens? We start having soft bones and a higher risk for brittle bones, especially in older people. And so not only is stopping the production of vitamin D putting us at the eventual risk of dementia, which is linked. Now, dementia is actually linked through conditions such as diabetes. So you're diabetic, you've got a chance of becoming dementia or having dementia. Depression, heart disease. Now, all these things that I've mentioned, these diseases I've mentioned, with the presence of sunshine vitamin D, will help you to not just prevent these diseases, but also help to prevent the onset of osteoarthritis, otherwise called OA, and slow joint damage if you already have osteoarthritis. Having vitamin D, sunshine vitamin, will help to slow your joint damage. Vitamin D promotes calcium absorption by the body, which is required to enable bone growth and repair. So whoever told us to keep away from the sunlight is actually telling us to reduce the vitamin D in our bodies, and that will in itself have a knock-on effect on our health generally. So guys, Big Pharma is creating more patients by lowering the so-called bad LDL cholesterol. That is what they are doing. Vitamin D can affect all of these things, and yet we are still invited to lower our LDL cholesterol. And when you do that, like I mentioned, we are increasing our risks for these terrible conditions. And that is because of the lack of vitamin D. Sunshine vitamin prevents the onset of osteoarthritis. It is a stated fact. It goes beyond that. Sunshine vitamin also helps us to prevent rheumatoid arthritis. I personally, I used sleep, I used micronutrients, I used vitamin D. And by this I mean sunshine vitamin, not necessarily taking pills. I use sleep, nutrients, and vitamin D, also reducing stress levels to reverse my chronic fatigue syndrome, and also fibromyalgia. I had severe joint pains. I had insomnia. I had overwhelming fatigue. Imagine waking up in the morning and you feel tired, you feel drained. And I had all these symptoms, or I exhibited all this while I was on treatment. So I used sleep, micronutrients, and vitamin D to help fight off body pains and the dip in energy. And guess what? I saw massive improvement. We've been lied to. If you've studied fibromyalgia very well, it does not cause vitamin D deficiency. It's the flip side. Vitamin D deficiency causes symptoms of fibromyalgia. These are things I had to find out having had the case of fibromyalgia. And I want to touch a bit more on this. So in my study of sunlight, my new sunshine, I call it sunshine, it's called sunshine vitamin. I knew that exposure to optimal sunlight helps in creating vitamin D in my skin. And that in itself is my natural vitamin D. It's my natural vitamin D factory. Now, I've stated in a previous podcast, I believe is the podcast to do with epigenetics, or probably eugenics also, that any foreign-made, man-made drug that we take as consumers and that gets processed in our bodies is doing so because our body has a natural receptor for that particular drug, meaning that our body naturally makes that natural drug. It makes the drug, it makes the hormone that Big Pharma has just taken and created a substitute drug. Okay? And they do that. They take away the capability of our bodies to produce these hormones or these drugs by manufacturing these same drugs and making money from doing that. Now, this is the problem. The more we take these foreign drugs, the more we sort of calcify and kill off the natural internal body or internal body organ that is producing this natural drug. And so when we do that, we then need to take more petrochemicals to help deal with the after effects of the drugs that we are now taking that are replacing the natural drugs. This is simply madness. It's madness on steroids. Now, I also had insomnia, and I was being doused with pills for my severe depression and anxiety disorder. Now, instead of improving my state of health, I was getting worse. So like I said, I decided to do something about my health. I found out that the more I kept away from the sun, and there's what I call optimal time for exposure to sunlight. It's not just any time of day you can get the best sunlight. So the more I kept away from the sun, the more I was inhibiting the production of melatonin in my body. Now, what is melatonin? I'm just beginning to throw in all these words that don't seem to have any relevance to sunlight, but it does. Your melatonin is a hormone that triggers off the sleep cycle and puts us to sleep. However, it doesn't stop there. It gets more interesting. Because I was being treated for depression and severe anxiety, I realized that my moods improved the more I took vitamin D. And by that, I mean taking the sunshine pill, spending more time in the sunlight. I then found out that serotonin, which is the happy hormone, it makes you happy, makes you feel happy, is actually a huge and natural drug that our bodies make for free. It's made in the body. And it contributes to feelings of well-being and happiness, feelings of happiness, satisfaction, and mood stability. And serotonin is actually converted into melatonin. So can you see where I'm going with this? I hope you're getting this. If you have a serotonin deficiency, then you are definitely close to, or you are already having bouts of depression, even though you might not realize it. I mean, on average, 1 in 5 people will have depression sometime in their lives. So it's nothing that we should shy away from. Rather, let's address it. So I don't want us going off saying that GMAT Speak says low serotonin causes depression. What I'm saying is that increasing serotonin through the exposure to sunlight on a regular basis, you can't just do it one day and then jump off and then come again, do it next week. No, it's going to be done on a regular basis. And it's going to be done through a rhythm. It then becomes one of the most effective treatments for depression. And you will actually have to forget about Big Pharma. Now, Big Pharma has also created an alternative to your naturally created serotonin. They've created numerous selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, otherwise called SSRIs. Remember I said every petrochemical drug has a natural drug our bodies make. And you just need to listen to and understand your body to get it to function the exact way nature made it out to function. My people will not perish because now we have knowledge. I like to say we as a people spend millions on medical insurance and health bills, which, by the way, as a matter of fact, is the biggest cause of bankruptcy globally. And we do this because we don't want to do it cheerfully, or we do it cheerfully, but we do it because we are in ignorance. And this is one of the reasons why we have set up this tribe, to take back our dominion, to take back our authority, to take back our power. And it's going to be done through a tribe. So here is the thing, that big foodie, that's the big food industry, which is, I will repeat again, which is soon to be dominated by Bayer and Monsanto. I want that to sink into our systems, into our neurons, into our resocialized mindset. Bayer and Monsanto are going to dominate the food industry very soon. So these guys spend so much money on media flooding and advertising through their salespeople to tell us that the way we can naturally increase our serotonin levels is by eating food that contain essential amino acids, which can help us or help the body to produce more serotonin. And that's fine. It's actually a fact. It's true. However, what are these foods, these products? They are salmon, poultry, eggs, spinach, soy products, nuts, seeds, and the list keeps going on and on. But there's one particular product I want to stop on, I want to focus on. And it's something that we have been taking right from birth. It's milk. And Big Pharma will have us know that milk is one of the best natural products that helps to boost serotonin naturally. And it is. But there's a flip side to that. And this is the flip side. I mentioned milk to say this, and this will be another big statement of mine. What big foodie, big food industry, the Monsantos and the Bayers of this world, will not tell us is that just between 30 to 50 minutes in the sun every day is equivalent to the vitamin D that we get in 30 glasses of so-called fresh, healthy milk. So you will need to take 30 glasses of healthy milk in exchange of just 30 minutes to 50 minutes in the sun. Now, look at that comparison. So do we see how we've been wrongly socialized? Why are they not telling us that taking 5 micronutrients, such as vitamin D, green tea, omega-3 fatty acids, or vitamin B6, and the likes of that, will actually help us improve our serotonin levels? Why are they not telling us that? It is because asking us to take these micronutrients, these minerals, will keep us away from their distribution channels, from the people that they've trained, medical doctors. So, getting us to know that just 5 micronutrients, just 5, vitamin D, green tea, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B6, and the likes of them, will actually keep us away from the doctors. So I had to say all that to say that the lack of serotonin can make it even more difficult to get in a good night's sleep. And now what happens? We get tired easily, we get depressed, we can't sleep, and that cycle continues in a wonderfully perpetual cycle of never-ending torture. And when we continue in that state for an extended period of time, then guess what happens? The hormones of stress will deregulate our genes and create disease in us. Then we have to visit the medical doctors. Remember, I alluded to the fact that 90% of visits to the doctors are stress related. Essentially, in my stress podcast, I said, deal with stress, and you've dealt with 90% of illnesses. Now, what Big Pharma and Big Foodie will not tell us is that 15 minutes a day of sunlight exposure will reduce our risk of heart attack and stroke by 25%. Now, let me try and put a bit more perspective on Big Pharma's monopoly and manipulation. Okay, let me try and throw in a bit more information that I've mentioned in the first podcast, but I just want to mention it here. That there is a drug, there's a so-called drug for high cholesterol sufferers called Rafta. It's the same as Lipitor. Okay. Do we know that patients will have to take this drug for about 2 years to prevent just one heart attack? And they will need to take 3 times, or need to have 3 times the time and amount to prevent one stroke. And if you think that sounds pretty good, now think about this. This drug, Rafta, at one point in time cost $14,000 a year. At one point in time, using Rafta cost $2.4 million to prevent a single heart attack and $7.5 million to prevent a stroke. I would like to ask us just one question, just one simple question. How much does it cost us to use the sun? Zilch, zero, nada, nothing. It doesn't cost us a dime. What it actually does is that when sunlight hits the skin, it converts, and I want to re-emphasize on this, it converts the cholesterol in the skin to vitamin D. I did mention that, yes, cholesterol is converted into vitamin D in the skin. Now, how does the skin convert sunlight to vitamin D? I'm not going to dwell on that now. I will focus on that in one of my 5-minute podcasts. And I think I'm going to call it how cholesterol is converted in our body for healing, something like that. I will share some facts that Big Pharma do not want us to know. Because when your skin is exposed to sunlight, it manufactures vitamin D. That's a given. Okay, and this is done through the sun's ultraviolet UVB rays reacting to a protein in the body, in the skin, and converting it into vitamin D, actually vitamin D3, which is the active form of vitamin D. Vitamin D is linked to cholesterol. I want to drum this in. And we need cholesterol in our skin cells to make vitamin D from sunlight. This same vitamin D is later transformed in the liver and kidneys. But guess what? We need cholesterol for the first step to occur. So, do we know one thing? That most of us are lacking this crucial vitamin. Do we know, from my research, I found this out, that 3/4 of United States, US teenagers and adults, 3/4 are deficient in vitamin D. Let's assume the numbers in the United States are 300 million. So I'm essentially saying that about 75 million are deficient. Beg your pardon, not 75 million, 225 million are deficient in vitamin D. Only about 75 million are okay. Either because they bathe in the sun or they take vitamin D supplement. So 225 million are deficient in vitamin D. And that is why vitamin D, or the sunlight, is called the sunshine vitamin. And a deficiency in vitamin D is, according to new research, is actually now blamed for everything from cancer and heart disease to diabetes. And like I've said, this is caused by a lack of exposure to sunlight, inefficient production in the skin of vitamin D, not enough vitamin D in our diet causes health conditions that can affect, including, not just excluded, including gastrointestinal disorders, liver diseases, of which I was a victim, and renal diseases. So in closing, I would like to say this, and this is in particular reference to the current global pandemic that we are witnessing, which we are actually watching this pandemic like a blockbuster movie. I'm referring to the coronavirus. Okay, today is the 16th of March 2020, and we haven't actually experienced the peak of it. However, I want to mention a few things, and I'm not an authority, and I cannot project any claim flying around that the coronavirus is heat resistant and will be killed by a temperature of just 26 to 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 77 degrees Fahrenheit. However, one fact is that concerning our physiology, the cold weather wears down our body's defenses against infection. So you find that in the short days of winter, where we have little or no sunlight, we naturally run low on vitamin D, which is part of our immune system, the body's immune system. And at that point in time, it makes us more vulnerable to infection. And when we breathe in cold air, the blood vessels in our noses will constrict and stop us from losing heat, which may prevent white blood cells. That's the white blood cells are the warriors that fight off germs from reaching our mucous membranes and killing any viruses that we inhale. You can see the cycle that happens here. therefore allowing them to slip past our defenses unnoticed. It could be that this is the reason that we tend to catch a cold if we go outside with our hair wet. Now, I'm going to throw some facts, some figures around here now. And I'd like us to listen carefully. It is important to know that 80%, this is a recent information which I just picked up from the internet, 80% of people infected with the coronavirus will recover. Now, death rates will also vary by two huge factors, and these factors are age and underlying health conditions and issues. Remember my eugenics podcast on elimination of the so-called weak by viruses? Well, the coronavirus, COVID-19, is a typical example of an eugenics tool to eliminate the weak. But before I jump ahead of myself and go around blowing my mouth off, it's evidence, it's factual that of the 20% that do not recover from the coronavirus, age is a huge factor. Remember, I said there are two factors. It's the age and the underlying health conditions and issues. Those are two factors that will deprive 20% of those who get exposed to coronavirus from recovering. Now, of this 20%, 15% are 80 and above. 8% are between the ages of 70 and 79. 4% are between the ages of 60 and 69. And 3% are between the ages of 50 and 59. 2% are between the ages of 40 and 49. And just 1% are between the ages of 10 and 39. Currently, there's a 0% record of those aged between 0 and 9. Now, that's the first huge factor that will influence the death of the 20% that will not make it through a corona infection or through being positive of the COVID-19 virus. Now, the other factor, and it's a huge factor, okay, is the underlying health condition and issues that these particular people who have been attacked or who have been victims of the coronavirus will suffer. Now, of that 20% that don't recover, 12% have cardiovascular health issues. 8% of those who don't recover are diabetic. 7% already have respiratory diseases. Okay? And 6% have hypertension. And 2% accounted for have no underlying health issues. Now, I've given these facts, these figures, to buttress the fact that this is what they want. They want to eliminate the weak, the sick, the elderly, and the ignorant. Trust me, guys. Check my podcast on eugenics and epigenetics. Do not be caught unprepared. Do not. And staying with sunlight. If you have loved ones, or even a stranger, or anyone you would like to live in optimal health, so they don't end up having a neurodegenerative or dementia disease. And by dementia, I mean diseases such as Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. Then I would like you to do one thing. Encourage these loved ones, your friends, your neighbors, your colleagues at work, to take a 15 to 30-minute walk, at least every day in the sun, and let them do this for the next 90 days as a routine. I promise you, remarkable results will be experienced. That is a given, and you can thank me afterwards. I will be sharing a 5 minutes podcast for those of us who live, or for those who live in temperate regions where you don't get enough sunshine. And I'll be sharing alternatives and suggestions on how to get similar results. So please look out for this. It doesn't mean because you're living in a temperate region, you're not going to live optimal health. No, that is not true. Having said so, it has been reported by the press media, I mean, this is information being put out by Big Pharma, that the high incidence of skin cancer exists in the tropical regions. That's bullcrap. We actually have higher incidences of skin cancer in the temperate regions where there is no sunshine. So how then do you correlate sunshine or sunlight as an attributing factor to skin cancer? And it's all employed to sell their SPF, their UV protecting creams. But I don't want to digress. I will also be sharing 5-minute podcast on the best time of the day to get the most effective sunshine vitamin so that you can optimize your vitamin D levels. I'm going to share that also. So we're almost getting to 1 hour, and I didn't intend for us to go this far. However, please stay with me. Do we know that there was indeed a time in medical fraternity where vitamin D was talked down on? It was made to, it was deregulated. It was considered to be of non-effect. Now, guess what? The whole of the medical fraternity, those who care to listen and who care to search their hearts, now believe that the lack of vitamin D is the root cause of most illnesses. And currently there is a focus on getting out more sunshine vitamins and bottled vitamin D supplements out there. You know why? Because vitamin D is becoming very attractive. Vitamin D is cheap. It is essentially unregulated, and it's called, there's a word given to the effect of vitamin D. It's got a pleiotropic effect. And when I say pleiotropic, I mean it produces multiple effects. And it can do this when you're taking vitamin D from a single gene. Remember my podcast on epigenetics, where I categorically mentioned that there are only about 7 single cell gene chronic diseases. I would like you to check out that podcast on epigenetics. So I've thrown in a word, pleiotropic. So in my lexicon mood, I would like to explain what pleiotropic actually is. It's a Greek word that means more ways. That is, pleion means more. The pleion in that word means more. If you look at the Greek word, and tropos means way, so it means more ways. Okay. So what Big Pharma doesn't want us to know is that a cheap natural drug. Remember, and I mentioned this. I'm going to mention again, that for any drug to have an effect in our bodies, there must first be a receptor in our bodies. Then the natural receptor then allows our bodies to create, or to, the natural receptor receives the natural drug created by the body to help heal the body or maintain homeostasis in the human body. So vitamin D is produced, remember I mentioned, naturally in the skin when the sunlight interacts with cholesterol. So it is in the best interest of Big Pharma to create this LDL and HDL nonsense so that we take statins to help lower cholesterol levels. And this is what Big Pharma doesn't want us to know, that we have a cheap natural drug that can help our bodies to fight off diseases. So the less we know about this natural drug, the more statins we will take, which is taken to reduce or to lower cholesterol levels. And this is done so that our bodies will not have sufficient vitamin D in it, so that we will then get chronically ill and take drugs to help alleviate diseases like cancer, high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes, therefore making them richer in their pockets. That's the big pharma. Once we die, and we die at a younger age. And once people are dying, they're actually dying taking these drugs and getting sicker and dying in pain. So we then see our loved ones die in a bad way. And when this happens, we are keeping big pharma in big business because of what we do not know. So in closing, I think this must be my fourth or third closing. When adopting a new mindset to taking vitamin D supplements, and this is where sunlight is not available or is not possible, please be aware that the very same mega companies want and are now selling supplements. Okay? They are actually selling supplements right now. So I'm going to have to close right now. I've introduced sunlight. As mentioned earlier, and as I mentioned in my introductions to the 9 tools, I'm going to share more podcasts which will highlight more information. And I've shared the sunlight podcast from information that I garnered and I got from others. This is information that I've actually personally used in my life to reverse my chronic illness. And I want this podcast to create a discussion in our minds about how we can optimize our lives, how we can change the narratives in our lives by using, in this instance, the sunshine vitamin pills daily, so that we ensure that we can manipulate and use the knowledge we share to create and rewire our minds, so that our minds in themselves get in control and become the general, while our bodies become the soldiers. The bodies take control or take orders from the mind. Because when you think good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you do good. I have taken time to take us through sunlight to give us optimal health. Next up is the pill to sex. That is what we're going to hear next. Please check my website www.jimaspeaks.com and www.georgemashigo.com, and also check my YouTube channel, also George Mashigo, for this podcast on sex. This is going to be my next talk as we progress across the 9 tools in the Senses Toolbox Kit. Senses is a product that I created to form a habitual recollection of what we need to do, what we need to take daily to optimize our health. Thank you so much for clicking that link and listening to this podcast. Thank you so much. God bless and have a beautiful day. Cheers.